All right, welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today. If you've ever felt that deep frustration of setting a massive, life-changing goal only to watch it just sort of fizzle out a few weeks later, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking those abstract personal goals and turning them into concrete realities. We are going to look at long-term problem solving and project management through a highly structured, almost ruthless lens. Specifically, we'll be breaking down Thomas Alethea's rigorous 8-step planning guide. This methodology forces us to define our problems in writing, establish measurable criteria, evaluate our resources, physically rehearse the plan, and conduct after-action reviews. It essentially treats your personal ambitions with the exact same professional, tactical rigor that a CEO would apply to a major corporate launch. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover why your plans fail, define and break down, build the blueprint, rehearse the reality, execute and evaluate, and finally, the resilient planner. Let's get right into it. Section 1, Why Your Plans Fail, the Root of Failure. It's a really provocative question, isn't it? Why do our best laid plans actually fail? I mean, you've got the motivation, you've got the desire, you probably even have the resources. But then boom, the plan just crashes and burns before it even gets off the ground. Well, to cure the disease, we first got to understand the symptoms. According to Thomas Alethea's methodology, there are 3 massive reasons our plans fall apart. First off, your goals are just way too vague. If you don't have absolute, crystal clear vision on what you want, you're going to have a terrible time breaking it down into manageable steps. Second, your plans don't actually reflect your personal goals and core values. Think about it. If your plan is just something you think you should do, rather than something you deeply care about, your motivation is going to nosedive. And third, you lack support or confidence in the outcome. When you combine those 3 things, planning becomes a total afterthought. You avoid it entirely, preparation suffers, and massive opportunities are just lost. Moving right along to Section 2, Define and Break Down, Laying the Foundation. Okay, so this is phase 1 of the 8-step methodology, which is all about the foundation. Now, step 1 is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to define the problem, goal, or change in writing. Seriously, do not skip this. If you try to solve the wrong problem or make a change that doesn't align with your values, you're just inviting chaos. Literally write it down. Then, step 2 is to develop specific tasks to actually achieve that goal. So we're talking about gathering info, listing out your biases, and basically ruthlessly chopping those massive scary goals into tiny actionable subtasks. You also need to spell out the exact resources you'll need to pull this off. Time, money, skills, maybe even calling in a friend from a friend. Look at the stark contrast here. The amateur way relies entirely on this vague sense of willpower. You say something like, oh, I want to get a promotion eventually, right? There is absolutely 0 measurable criteria there. But look at the tactical way. Take management class by June to apply for senior role. Wow, it's ruthless, it's highly measurable, and it establishes exact criteria. It essentially forces you to deal with reality. All right, Section 3, Build the Blueprint, the architecture phase. Now that our foundation is poured, we move to phase 2, which groups together steps 3, 4, and 5. Step 3 is where the magic happens and your plan physically takes shape. You create a timeline to link all those little tasks you just identified. Then step 4 is where you devise strict methods to track your progress. You've got to have quality control measures so you don't accidentally drift off course. And finally, step 5 is finalizing the plan. This just means doing a top-to-bottom review to make absolutely sure no corners were cut and every possible contingency has been addressed. And that brings us to a brilliant concept from step 3, backward planning. Notice how you don't actually start with today. Instead, you pick a specific target date for your final goal. From there, you figure out the next to last step and estimate exactly how long that will take. Then, you just keep working backward, step by step, estimating the time for each one until you land right back at present day. It's almost like a giant puzzle, but working backward creates this foolproof, highly realistic timeline that tells you exactly what your very first move needs to be today. But, reality rarely respects our nice, neat timelines. I absolutely love this punchy quote directly from the source material by Mike Tyson. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's so true, and it perfectly transitions us into the vital and honestly entirely ignored art of contingency planning. So a contingency is simply the occurrence of an unpredicted event. Basically, things going wrong. Evaluating your resources and actively preparing for friction is exactly what separates the amateurs from the professionals here. You need to look systematically at your plan and ask these highly tactical questions. What if the unexpected happens? How likely is it to actually occur? How much damage is it going to do to the project? And finally, what's the cost, whether that's time, money, or effort, to mitigate that risk? You've got to put your energy into preparing for the contingencies that carry the highest risk and the highest damage. That way, when things go sideways, you'll be completely prepared. Which brings us to Section 4, rehearse the reality, the physical stress test. Okay, we are entering a really unique part of this methodology. Step 6 is to rehearse the plan. And no, this isn't something you'll see in a standard corporate management seminar. To do something well, you have to physically practice it, right? The source material offers this genuinely surprising tactic. Let's say your goal is to wake up the absolute second your alarm goes off. You actually physically act it out during the day. You set your alarm, you pretend to go to sleep, you wait for the beep, and then you literally jump out of bed. I know, it might sound a little ridiculous at first, but it absolutely works. Physical rehearsals like this pinpoint the real-world friction points that just don't show up when you're theorizing on paper. Section 5, execute and evaluate. Execution and evolution. Here in Phase 3, our thoroughly rehearsed theory finally meets action. Step 7 is to implement your plan task by task. You just look at that backward plan timeline, tackle the first task until it's done, and move to the next. Simple enough, right? But executing is literally only half the battle. Step 8 is to monitor and evaluate your progress continually. You actively revise those contingency plans we talked about whenever necessary. Constant evaluation is the lifeblood here. It's what keeps your project breathing and actually moving forward. Now, to evaluate like a pro, the source highly recommends an after-action review. Whenever you finish a major task, sit down and map out a rigorous matrix, just like this one. Ask yourself, what exactly happened? What went well? And what do I need to improve? For instance, did you finish ahead of schedule but realize you were scrambling for resources? Or maybe you hit an obstacle and used your contingency plan beautifully, but your communication was a bit delayed. Documenting this whole process streamlines your workflow and actively stops you from repeating the exact same mistakes over and over again. And our final section, Section 6, the resilient planner, mindset for survival. Let's bring this explainer home by focusing on the mindset you need to actually survive this whole process. Because let's be real, even with the absolute best matrices, reality rarely matches the blueprint perfectly. As the poet Robert Burns wrote, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Even equipped with this perfect, highly tactical 8-step methodology, life is just inherently messy. We live in a real world where things break down and people make mistakes. The text really encourages us to adopt a resilient, almost stoic attitude about the final results. At the end of the day, your flexibility, paired with your new tactical preparation, is your ultimate safety net. So the most crucial point to remember is this. A plan is entirely useless without execution. I want to leave you with a direct challenge. What is that vague, unwritten goal just floating around in your head right now? And more importantly, what is your written, clearly defined step 1 going to be today? Seriously, grab a piece of paper, write it down, and start building your tactical blueprint right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what you build.